Letterboxed Video Store, a show where I, Alexei, talk to interesting, exciting, cool, funny, and beautiful people about their favorite movies, and I do so in the style of an old school video store rental combo. This week we've got a special episode. It is a return shoot special. We've got a returning guest sliding through their return shoot. They've liquefied themselves. They've piled themselves up into a VHS cassette tape. They've slid through that little slot that we have at the door for the out of hours returns. But here I am, sitting in the shoot with them, and joining me is none other than Zachary Ruane.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's so good to be one of your beautiful, interesting, cool, fun people.
Well, sometimes I just get friends on as well.
Oh.
But Zach, thank you for joining me. You're our second returning guest, returning customer, if you will. And who would have thought the first two returning guests would be the two people I work closest to? I thought maybe Keith Urban would have come back by now.
Yeah, I saw him out the back. He just used the, the return slots,
He doesn't stay
the
in.
after hours.
Yeah.
He just used the after hours return slot. And I was like, Keith, you can come in.
Come in, man.
Come say hi to Alexei. He'd
Come
love to
hang
see
out
you.
with us,
And he was
man.
like, no, it's fine.
He was shy, huh?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Nicole was in the car.
Of course.
She was beeping. She was like, come on. He was like, I just want to get some colourful popcorn.
Oh, we've got some nice dry popcorn, a few licorice, all sorts
yum,
if you
yum,
want.
yum.
Yum, yum, yum.
Yum.
Yeah, we've got all the snacks. We've got a couple of frozen dry maxi bonds back there.
Last time I was here, did I tell you about when I worked at Video Easy and they sold pods? Did I talk about the pods?
I believe we would have talked pods.
I would have talked pods.
Of course, pods is one of my favorite topics.
And they introduced pods, but for some reason, the manager just sold them at the recommended retail price. And we were all like losing our minds.
It's like, you can mark these up, surely.
Well, that's what they do at the video
Yes,
shop.
of course. They could be marking up these pods.
So we were just like, I was munching on pods every day.
Well, I would say that...
Just sideways trailer would segue into Rogue Trader's Voodoo Child. I've been munching on a Mars pod. It doesn't get better than that. These are the best days of your life kind of
If you
situation.
could go back, well, Zach, guess what? You are being taken back to those eras. We've got the pods on ice for you. They'll be nice and chilly by the time we finish this podcast. You can munch on a few of them. But you're returning some movies today.
I am. I'm bringing back Zoolander.
Yes, Zoolander.
I'm bringing back May, December.
May, December,
The
new release. Phil.
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry,
new release.
I know there'll be a
Zach's
fee on that.
Yeah, it's gone to 3-day higher by now, mate. Bringing it back.
And I'm bringing back, what else did I the last time?
Oh, Australian picture?
Road Games.
Road Games, a Hitchcock-inspired film.
And I'm bringing back, quite sadly now,
Yes.
Mulholland Drive.
With a sullen face, we are returning Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, bringing
Yeah.
that back.
Rest in peace to David Lynch.
And
one
I'm
of your
also
heroes.
bringing back your recommendation, Body Double.
Yeah, Body Double. That was the staff pick recommendation that you got in your combination. And I'll be honest now, yeah, the combo's changed. It's not a one new release and 3 weeklies and then a staff pick. Cost of living hit the Batuta Video Store quite hard. We did have to change the combo in the days after you first arrived here.
The inflation was podcast runtime in this universe.
This
universe.
We really had to slice that back a little bit. It was the easiest way to do so.
Yeah.
But, you are returning these. They are late. They actually have a 7-day hire, most of these things. You
Yeah,
can drop
I'm
them back.
returning them like, 6, 7, 8,
6, 7,
like a year, maybe
almost a
12
year.
months
Yeah,
late.
it might be 12 months late. So there is a late fee attached. And the late fee, because, I don't believe in capitalism. I don't believe in the exchanging of currencies. I believe in the exchanging of arts and ideas.
Yeah.
So your late fee is you have to share a sincere, positive memory of working with me on our project, Refuse
Hey.
Classification, which is our festival program that we are doing. It was officially in all the official competitions of all the comedy festivals here in Australia. We've entered it. It'll be there. But if you could share a little bit about the show and positivity of working with me.
Wow, how great to plug a show when the person you're plugging it to is equally invested in it.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
great. This is really good. So I Also $375. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also that. It's actually racked up quite a bit. But if you do a really good plug and we can sell tickets, I'll take that in lieu. You know?
Yeah, great. So, so I am doing a show. You might not know him, with a guy named Alexei Toliopoulos.
Funny fella, I've heard.
It's my first comedy festival show outside of Aunty Donna. It's going to be a real blast. Doing something a little more niche, a little more for, I don't know, do your listeners like movies?
Oh, do you? Allow me to look down the lens. If you like movies, buy tickets. They're in the show notes for our comedy festival show called Refuse Classification. Sydney, Melbourne,
Adelaide,
Brisbane.
Brisbane.
Brisbane might be on sale by the time this is out, but we're doing a big tour.
And we are talking about, the other one on the West Coast.
We're talking about a West Coast.
But if you're
a West Coast
listening
day.
and it hasn't been announced yet, it might not have happened. But Refuse Classification is the most Alexei Toliopoulos and the most Zachary Ruane show you will ever see. It is a show about Margaret and David. I'm sorry to everyone over 30 right now. You're going to feel old because we are going to have to explain them to everyone under 30. They were two reviewers on television that we both grew up idolizing, loving. And it's a little piece of history about when Ken Park, by the director Larry Clark, was banned. Basically, Margaret Pomeranz went crazy. Don't want to give away the end of the show. Don't Google it. Come see the show. But went crazy, defended this movie, and it's a funny, historical, educational, interesting story about how Australian...
It's about censorship and classification in Australia. It's about freedom of speech in an interesting way.
I was about to say something quite divisive about how, we can be a little bit lame here in Australia.
It's true. We can be a bit lame. But this is about a punk rock fucking idol of mine, Margaret Pomeranz, standing up to the man, sticking it to the man. I get to play Margaret Pomeranz, and you played David Stratton.
Yeah,
but it's been a lot of
playing
fun.
against type. Because I'm the wacky guy usually in what I do, so I get to play the solid core of the Margaret and David team.
But I would say I found a lot of sincerity in my performance. I think it starts as a snatch game impression of Margaret, and then by the end, I'm not going for laughs. I'm going for tears.
You're going to laugh. You're going to learn. We hope you're going to cry. It is the greatest show ever made by anyone, and we recommend you come at the start. To all the listeners, if you're in Melbourne, come at the start of the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
Because it is going to build hype. This show is actually going to become a behemoth by the end.
We need you. I'm going to reach out to you directly.
Yes.
We're going to need you, the big fans, the sort of people that are going to come to this show anyway, because it's a little niche. This show about censorship. We're going to need you to come in the first couple of days. You come as early as you can in your city so you can spread the word and get that word of mouth out there. Heck, spread the word now. Start spreading the word.
Start spreading the word.
But it's a great show. I'm very proud of it, and I can't wait to bring it to everyone.
It's in short, it's a live documentary on stage.
Yeah.
And the way that I've been describing it, like you said, the most Alexei, the most Zach show ever, but I'd say it's exactly in the between an Aunty Donna style sketch show and a Finding style documentary. It's those two things live on stage together.
It's very live. It's very fun. It's something I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and I'm so glad I got to do it. So I think,
your late fees check out. The plug was successful. I'm sure we've sold tickets on the back of that to Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Adelaide. Maybe
Perth.
We don't know.
And if anyone in Perth
and anyone in Edinburgh. No, too scary.
No, no one knows Margaret.
No one knows. Well, they might know David. He's English after all. He's travelled.
The other day I saw someone I knew watched up. I want to say Now You See Me. No, it's the one with Carey Mulligan and Andrew Garfield. Mark Romanek directed it. It was written by...
Oh, Never Let Me Go.
Never Let Me Go.
Yeah. Kazu Ishiguro, based on the novel.
A beautiful film. I've watched it now twice, and I'm sorry if you're listening, Kazu. I'm always so disappointed that it's not a 5-star film.
Me too. The book is a 5-star book.
Yeah, I've not read the book.
I love the book.
That film, all the ingredients are like, this should hit me right in the fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And I've watched it both times.
It nails my thigh.
It's like,
I'm like,
yeah, that would suck. But I saw on Letterboxd.
It crushes the shaft.
Someone on the Letterboxd has a Margaret and David account, and the review I'm going to find it. I'm going to quote it to you. I know we should talk about Body Double, but this is too special, Alexei. I think.
Of course. Where else can we talk about this?
I just was, as two people that have been talking about Margaret and David a lot in the last 6 months.
Year making a show.
You will love this. It's a real treat. Never Let Me Go. So shout out to Liam, my friend Liam, who directs all of Hot Department stuff, for watching Never Let Me Go. So it came up in my feed. Here is Margaret and David's review. I won't read the whole thing. They just go back and forth. Mate. They're talking about Alex Garland's screenplay. A little colder than you'd think. No, this is great. And then David goes, it doesn't soar, does it? Margaret goes, no. He goes, really stays surprisingly prosaic, given it's such an unusual subject. And then Margaret goes, and England in the 1950s, so brown and grey. And David goes, oh, come on. I grew up in England in the 1950s. And Margaret goes, I know. That's what. He said, it was brown and grey. Margaret, yes, it was. It was always brown and grey. David, no, it wasn't. What are you giving this? I'm giving it 3. Me too, 3.
And see, that's why it was the best shit ever. And we're doing a lot of verbatim recreations of their stuff and some of the reviews, stuff from real life, lots of real life interviews and stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a great show. We don't do that, but we do an even better review.
An even better, the most iconic review from them. You're going to love it. But anyway, your bloody late fees have checked out, mate.
Wow.
They work, you get off. But the only thing you have to do, we're going to talk about Body Double. Because I recommended this movie to you on the show.
You did.
And I would say I felt like this was the hardest I ever nailed the recommendation. Do you remember how I, like, everything, how it lined up?
So when I was watching it, I had forgotten because, as you said, your podcast now is, this video shop.
Thank you. You do have to wink and nudge.
I'm in a freak out mode right now because I realized I broke your world because I talked about Letterboxed at a video shop. Those two things never met.
Well, I'm a Letterboxed certified. I was on the video, mate.
So Body Double, I forgot one of the movies that I brought because you now do 2 weeklies, one overnighter.
We did a road games in there. We did
road games. So as I was watching this film, I was like, I forgot that you said you were proud of it.
Yeah.
And I was sitting here going, my God, this film is perfect. And I was only thinking of the Hollywood, the sort of dreamlike Hollywood of Mulholland Drive, the camp, the dark, ironic camp of May, December, and the Hitchcock turned up to 15 of Road Games. Those are the only things I was thinking of. I forgot that I also brought Zoolander. And this movie has almost comparable to someone, if anyone listening has not seen this but has seen Southland Tales, comparable to when he mouths to the killers. This movie has a full single take Frankie Goes to Hollywood sequence.
Which is famously reused in Zoolander, where that is what he's used to switch him on to take out the president of Micronesia?
Micronesia.
Yeah, Micronesia.
I forgot.
Yeah.
And even watching it, I was like, that's the song from Zoolander. I was literally like, that's the best bit in the movie. And it wasn't until earlier today when you were like, and the Zoolander thing. And I was like, oh. Truly, I have to say, I hope that there are listeners out here that have seen all 5 because this is truly the greatest video store referral ever done in the history of the world. This movie could be made if you were to break it down to its elements, in the way that like everything is made out of 52 elements in the entire world. This movie could be made purely by breaking down the 4 movies I brought.
Truly, I reckon you could get freaking Guy Madden in here. You go here, or you need to recreate Body Double. All you've got is Zoolander, Mulholland Drive, Road Games, and May December. You have to slice that up and make it feel like Body Double. It's like absolutely they could do it by the end of the afternoon for you.
And you've got the final scene of May December is like the opening and closing scenes of this. My God, Alexei.
I know, I truly nailed it.
Like, Do you always do this good? 'Cause
No,
this is insane.
There's a few where I go that I really like, but nothing has lined up as perfectly. When I felt like a message from the gods when I figured it out.
Like, it's not like I love particular. Like, I like an obscure film, but they rarely rise to the top. I'm always very honest about my favorite films,
Yes.
you know, and so it's
Avengers Endgame, Avengers Age of Ultron.
I love. It's like I'm in such a fucking bubble of film people that I think Mulholland Drive is not a wanky choice. I know Mulholland Drive's a little obvious.
yeah.
The 2-hour dreamscape where they all change. I know it's. I was like forgetting that most people's favorite movie is like
The last thing they saw. Either the last thing they saw or the first movie they ever watched, The Lion King.
Twisters was pretty good.
Yeah.
Although I've heard a lot of good things about Twisters. But no, I would say my film taste is not like deep dive, but it is relatively eclectic.
Yes.
I thought I had brought a relatively eclectic set of films. So for you to find a film that was made before all of them, that featured the tone of all of them, is insane. And I don't think I could truly appreciate the film because the whole time I was like, my God.
My God, this boy's done it.
He's done
He's done it. But let's talk a little bit about Body Double. I also want to recommend it to you because I love Brian De Palma. You've barely ventured into the works of Brian De Palma. And I thought this is a great one because I think it has the two greatest features of Brian De Palma front and center. It is his worshipping at the altar of Hitchcock. This is a lot of Vertigo. This is a lot of Rear Window. But it also has all of his... how do I say his perversions bubbled up to the top as well?
Dirty little boy.
His dirty little surveillances, his, what do you call it? Peeping Tom? What do you call that stuff where you're
Peeping
like...
Tom, voyeurism.
Voyeurism, yeah. It's a lot of voyeurism. That's like his thing,
Can I say
voyeurism.
a little aside.
Aside me.
Virgin Australia, their in-flight magazine, I don't know if what it still is, but was called Voyeur. And I was like, that's the only in-flight magazine that's named after a crime.
Not too shabby for a virgin.
Let's maybe stop peeking and start working on yourself.
Let's give it a shot. But this is a 1984 film from Brian De Palma. I'll give you a little rundown of the plot.
Please.
Or do you want to read it from the back?
Oh, sure. Well, do you want to read it from the back? You're the host.
Of course, I'd love to. Jake Scully, Craig Wasson, an unemployed actor, is asked to house sit at a luxurious hillside apartment. It's a famous building in Los Angeles.
I Googled it.
Tell me about that when we get there. As a bonus, the home offers Jake a telescopic peek into the bedroom of Gloria Revelle, played by Deborah Shelton, who performs an arousing strip tease. When Jake discovers another man is also spying on Gloria, he begins an obsessive surveillance of her. Soon, a grisly murder leads him into the world of X-rated film where he meets sexy porn queen Holly Body, played by the ravishing Melanie Griffith, excuse me. Who's Michelle? Who is a key to the crime. De Palma has created a gripping adult thriller of eroticism and horror. So what were your first, apart from like seeing how well it lined up, this is an early foray for you into the world of Brian De Palma, the twisted, perverted, nasty world of De Palma.
Well, I'm getting, like, I would say I'm relatively deep now. Like, I'm like, not all the way deep, but I've got a few fingers to keep it filthy like De Palma. And I think I'm starting
not just the fingers, the whole De Palma as well. Good Lord.
Because I think when I was not feeling him, I just watched Blowout, and that didn't work for me as a film. And now I'm not going to say that with any real confidence because I've now loved enough of his stuff that I'll go back to it. But the griminess didn't feel... It just felt grimy. It didn't feel like it was about griminess. It didn't feel like it was saying anything. Like, I think to talk about Lynch...
A Pang to My Heart, by the way, one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, I know. That's a tough
Good
one.
Lord, to my face.
But I think, like, it just felt gross, right?
Yeah.
In a way that just didn't resonate. And I really can, work with gross, but I just think there's something about... like when Lynch does it, there's a power. He knows what he's showing. Whereas with Blowout, it just didn't gel for me, right?
It's more overtly nasty. It's heightened in a cinematic way. But I think what Body Double does is this really unique thing in there. And when I think about the juxtaposition of sound and vision, I think Body Double is a great film to highlight that, like, what truly is juxtaposition. Because the Body Double, the visual, like, or the story or the plot, like this, the entire world of this, it's nasty, it's grubby. The score by Pino Donaggio, one of the great Euro disco, Italo disco composers, he's done a lot of De Palma scores, is this dreamy,
beautiful,
ethereal fantasy score. Like, it's really, like, it's sublime. It's a sublime score. So much so, they reused the hero song in this, where you see Craig Wasson's character looking through that telescope. It's literally the scene of complete perversion where he is voyeuring onto someone stripping across the canyon or whatever. And it's played like this dreamy fairy song coming up, like,
It's amazing.
They use that song, they rip it out, use it in its entirety in the film Air by Ben Affleck when they're showing the Nike Air for the first time.
Really?
And it's rotating around. And if anything, it makes more sense in that because it feels so heightened, but it's like, well, you're missing it entirely and this movie sucks ass. But I think that score elevates this in a really interesting way for it to be just something incredibly unique.
Yeah, and I think visually as well, it's so beautiful in this garish way, like the architecture. I love films. So many films that were, particularly in the past, are shot in LA, but a lot less are set in LA.
Yeah.
And I love films that are set in LA. Like, I really feel you know it and you feel it, and it's such a distinct city, and it's so audibly and visually a beautiful film, and that contrast is incredible. And I think as well, there's something to. It knows how grimy it is.
I mean, it's set in the world of porno, you know?
Yeah, and there's just this, like, almost what I love is because it's so derivative of Hitchcock, like so derivative, like one of his most.
Oh, yeah. He wears that on his sleeve.
yeah. But it feels kind of fun because it's like, with Hitchcock, he's usually, Rear Window and Vertigo, he's casting the most charismatic, likable, like the Tom Hanks of the time in
Jimmy
the lead.
Stewart. Yeah.
Someone who is just hard to hate.
Yeah. And you can apply your own empathy on him because you go, I want to be Jimmy Stewart.
And there's a romanticism and there's a glamour to everything that's happening. To then take those tropes and just have it be like this grubby out of work actor. Yeah. It's just like it knows that it's grubby, and there are characters that are like, you're a fucking filthy peeping Tom.
Exactly.
And it's just like, it's so...
He's such a loser.
It's so grotty, but it's like, it for me captures the that energy so beautifully that, like, is so rarely captured in this sort of film.
And it's a great example of, like, neon noir, like that 80s era of noir that's like it's a bit sun-soaked, but also the kind of neon night skies and stuff. It just captures that entire just vibe so well. I think part of that is that casting of Melanie Griffith. It's such a key role. Incredible performance as well. It's like very physical, but also just contains a lot of power, a lot of status. Great Melanie Griffith.
Yeah, and I think she elevates it because I think that was my problem with Blowout as well. It's been a while since I watched it, but it felt there was a cruelty to that female lead in that film that whereas she's so three-dimensional, and I think part of that is the script, and a lot of it is the performance. It's a real example of a performer elevating the...
Yeah.
It was just so cool.
Great casting. And I would give a little special shout out because when you talk about, like, the grubbiness of this film and, like, the grittiness, the grime of it all, you cannot go past Dennis Franz in this movie. From NYPD Blue, I just think that De Palma has a great little soft spot for Dennis Franz. And just like a dirty slime ball like that in a movie like this, you go, God, he's just good casting. You love to see a face like that in a movie like this. But Body Double, fantastic film. Any other final thoughts on Body Double before we get into a new combo?
The final thoughts on Body Double, I'm just going to say, I think it's, and I sort of talked about it with the griminess, but I think it's just like there was just a... there was a turning it up to 11 that I think there was this metatextual sort of like turning it up to 11 and taking the tropes of Hitchcock and turning them up to such a degree. That
All
they-
the chasteness of Hitchcock removed, like that kind of 50s and 60s. The chasteness gone. It's overt.
And there's like this one particular moment where there's this 360 sort of rotating shot of him making out with the woman he's been following, and it's literally just Vertigo, right? The shot is from Vertigo. It's at the similar story point to Vertigo, but in Vertigo, it's this guy that's beautiful and handsome. She's like this damsel in distress. She's like such a Hitchcock blonde, and in Vertigo, it's like beautiful and tragic, and he knows he shouldn't be doing it, and it's tender, and he will protect her. And in this, it's just the most porny Mac-on scene you're ever gonna see. And it's just like to take all of these like story beats and visual cues and just turn them into this like something that kind of no longer works or makes any kind of sense. It's good.
You also mentioned you researched the building, is it the UFO building?
I can't remember what it was called. Yeah, but I looked it up because I have
you're an architectural.
I have a little bit of a soft spot for architecture, and particularly LA, like Hollywood Hills, modernist architecture. Those houses on the hill, some of them are like just wildly good. And when you first see it, I thought it was a matte painting. I was like, oh, that's not a real house. And then there's
Is this a matte painting from the Jetsons that they actually put in this place?
Legitimately. Yeah. And then there's a shot of Melanie Griffiths running down the stairs at one point. I'm like, holy shit, that's a real building. And I looked it up, and the guy has also, that's not even his most famous building, but it is just wild. It's like a hexagon on a single metal pole that's just driven into the canyon. It's just so cool.
Just great use of place. That is Body Double from Brian De Palma. You return it alongside your other favorite movies. And this, I nailed it, it's safe to say.
Nailed it.
Now the Stuff Pick recommendation.
Go watch my ones and then watch this.
I think that's a great way to do it. It's a great tee up. You've got a new combo that you can get today, Zach, in your return. It is 2 new release films.
What?
And then I'll give you another Stuff Pick recommendation from somewhere in the store. Can be from anywhere.
Wow.
So the stakes are rising right now. Allow the stakes to be built back in. But we're going to go to our new release section. You're going to pick up 2 movies. And then I'll give you that Stuff Pick recommendation.
New release.
Well, let's start with your first one. Which film would you like to begin with? Because these are, I noticed we have also a new release section delineated by genre as well. And these are both from the horror section of the new release.
I suppose they are.
He's a horror head.
In a way, I suppose they are.
Yes. Actually, I do have one of them if you want to hold.
Yeah, and that's the one I was going to hand you first. This is the closer of the two to a pure horror. Although even this is not all the way there. It's a little film. No one's heard of it, called The Substance.
The Substance. Coralie Fajar.
Horror.
Yeah, this is a movie that you and I saw together in the cinema. And we saw it very, very early. We saw it at the Australian premiere. And it was the closing night film of the Sydney Film Festival. And I would say this is a very special trip to the cinemas that we had.
It was, so I knew nothing about this film at the time. I knew
subgenre. That's all I knew. I didn't even know director.
I knew 2 things. I knew 3 things, actually. I knew Demi Moore. I knew body horror.
Yeah.
I knew it was about an aging woman in Hollywood.
Okay, I know those same 3 things.
And I knew a 4th thing was that it blew up at Cannes.
Okay, we knew the same 4 things. We had the same basket of ingredients going in.
What I didn't have was a ticket to the movie.
Yes.
I got to Sydney. For the last 2 years now, I've just come up for one weekend of Sydney Film Festival. It's a fun little weekend. Get myself a little hotel, catch up with my friend Alexei, watch some movies, meet some distributor friends of Alexei, say, oh, what are you doing next year, people at Umbrella? And they tell me. And then I was really sad. I didn't have a ticket. And then Alexei got me a ticket to The Substance. And one of the best in-cinema experiences of my life, in my opinion.
Wow. And it was a great experience because we saw the closing night. It was after an hour of awards, which is a dry experience.
One of the best in-cinema experiences of my life, immediately preceding one of the worst in-cinema experiences. It's like, I'm very happy for you all,
Yeah.
but I want to watch the movie.
Yeah, this guy's got ADHD diagnosed style. The guy's jittering. He's running out of things to do.
I'm ready to watch a movie now, guys.
So it's like a long experience, but usually the films that they play at those kind of things are like, I guess kind of like they've done Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny previously.
Yeah.
They did the Beatles. What if the Beatles didn't exist and one guy went back in time and knew about
They
them
did that
or whatever?
one. I still haven't seen that.
Yesterday? Is that
Yeah.
called Yesterday?
Yeah.
Is that called Yesterday?
It is called Yesterday.
they do-
Funnily enough, the film was written. The guy who came up with the idea. Oh no, I won't.
Well, let's not go down that rabbit hole. But also, and then stuff like that would maybe do a Wes Anderson movie or something like that. So you usually have to kind of like throw a ball straight down the line, like something that is enjoyable, not too challenging. Instead, they programmed an extreme body horror film that I would say is challenging genre-wise to usual. The rusted-on festival goers that would have bought their seats in the State Theatre for the entire season. It would be challenging for them. They don't show this kind of like a pretty much midnight movie at a closing night for a festival. And it hit extremely hard. For a packed audience in the most beautiful cinematic space, maybe in the entire country, and for it to be a hard-hitting body horror comedic film, you're hearing not just walkouts, you're seeing pass outs, you're seeing fade outs. Someone passed out and puked out onto our friend Felix. There was it was insanity in there at certain points.
It was so, for me, what it was every time I go to a festival, I'll watch a few horrors, and it's always in one of the smaller cinemas, out of the way, in the middle of the festival, later at night. And they always sell really well because horror fans are really hardcore. But horror fans, and I love horror, but I wouldn't put myself in that category of like the horror fandom, right? They are so hardcore about it that they almost don't see the gore anymore. They're looking at what's happening on top of it or around it. So to then watch a movie like this that has so much going on around the body horror, but to watch it with an audience, I felt like I was 15 again, watching a horror movie at a sleepover where I was the only person that liked horror movies. And I forgot that is the most thrilling setting to watch a horror movie in. Watching horror movies with a bunch of people that like horror is fine. Watching horror movies with people that don't care for horror
And also can't handle it.
and can't handle it. There's a bit in this movie, a lot of people now would have seen it, where Margaret Qualley, spoiler alert, stitches Demi Moore back up and the needle goes into her body. It's the first real moment of body, or the second real moment of body horror of the film. And just the groan of 1,000 people was just, I've never felt more alive because I was like, yeah.
Dude, you were like fucking Max Cady, Cape Fear, cackling away
I
next to me.
I still feel bad because I think I ruined it for Alexei. I ruined it for you because I was just sitting there like, whoa. I've never
I'm
been
crossing
so like,
my arms. No, I would also say I just started rewatching this last night because I need a little taste extra. And I was very thoughtfully and nicely gifted this by a friend. I was gifted the new 4K copy. Hold it up, mate. Let's go a plug. The movie 4K copy from Tyler. Thank you, Tyler, for gifting this and delivering it to the Last Video Store. Much appreciated. And I would say I've been thinking a lot about the value of rewatching and the blessing of rewatching things. Because for many, many years, I've been the advocate of going in blank slate style, going in without much knowledge and just accepting what comes, going in and finding the film. But over the last couple of years, especially doing this podcast, we were talking about the movies I love the most. Rewatching has been part of my thing more than ever. And I think the value of rewatching sometimes is being able to enjoy the unique pleasures of a film. I think The Substance has a lot of unique pleasures that you can only really get from this. And you put it so well immediately after we saw the film that I whenever I talk about this film, I always quote you where you said it is body horror that is more Trauma or Toxic Avenger inspired than Cronenberg inspired.
And I think when you're going to the closing, like particularly from us, like even still, now it's like on the Oscars run, it's like this, you go in expecting Cronenberg and to get and it's so funny seeing normal people in the comments whenever it's posted about like the last half hour is so divisive.
It's like proper Troma. If you don't know Troma is a low-budget horror studio. They made The Toxic Avenger.
They made Tromeo and Juliet.
Tromeo and Juliet. Lots of mutations, lots of like, nuclear fallout-y, but high comedy as well. Like comedy and horror and like exploitation and grime all together, but in a really fun, I would say Troma is actually quite accessible. Like I've seen Troma films with an audience and they are just a blast.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I've never seen them with an audience.
Oh, you
That'll
gotta. But it's like those are the unique pleasures of the substance, and also the Coralie Fager cinematography and like the artistic design using like ads. It looks more like a high gloss ad or a high neon hyper colored ad. I think that really adds to the unique pleasures of it. And then that pulsing sound.
Score.
The score just really works.
And it's also, I think, the thing I would say as well, because I've now watched it twice, and I think for me on the second watch, this is just something I've been thinking a lot about, was that a lot of people, even people that love it, say, oh, it's not subtle, right? They talk about...
Subtlety is overrated, man. I'll say it. Subtlety is overrated.
They say it's not subtle. I've heard Feminism 101. I've heard it says everything it needs to say on the surface, and that it's kind of obvious, right?
It's called the substance, not the subtext. Clip that one out.
What I would say on the rewatch, for me at least, is that I loved it on the level that I watched it the first time. I thought, fuck yeah, it sucks to be an aging woman in Hollywood, and fucking it's cool when shit blows up. I loved it on that level. But what I realize is that sometimes people, if something has an obvious message textually, they then assume there's no subtext. They only dig for subtext, particularly with a new film. Yeah. They only dig for subtext if there's no text. But this film, on the second watch, I think it has contradictions and it has complexity and it has depth. And
the world building worked a little bit more for me on this second watch as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's just particular moments, I think, of this film where the fact that Demi Moore is choosing this, there are disgusting male characters in this film, but they are not
They're not prescribing it to her.
They're not prescribing, they're not forcing. She's making these choices, and I think that's incredibly powerful. I think the fact that the script is saying one thing, but the camera is saying another thing. The script is saying, it's saying quite a progressive thing, but her camera is very 2000s, very American Apparel, very regressive in what it's saying, and that contrast really plays. And there's a couple of moments. There's two moments. Can I spoiler?
Yeah, of course. Everyone's seen this movie, I reckon.
Yeah, I think everyone's seen it now. There's two moments
I think my mum's seen it.
I know, isn't that wild? I never thought that watching this film. I was like, there's two moments. There's one moment when she's Monstro Elizasu, where she says, it's still me.
Yeah.
It's still me. And I just think there's something so powerful about this idea of a young woman who Hollywood and the world, she forms an internal sense of self from external validation, and then her external appearance and the external world around her changes, but internally she's still the same person. And that notion of who she is on the inside, being formed by the outside, but then rejected by the outside as well, I think is so interesting and is playing underneath, And then there's another moment where very weird, very French. She's cooking French cuisine, and it's really disgusting and foul. And she's watching Margaret Qualley's character on a talk show insulting her essentially, and she hates her. And I was reminded of this moment in an interview. I saw this interview with Anne Hathaway where she was talking. She was in her 30s, and she was saying she was losing roles to women in their 20s. And someone said, are you upset about that, or do you resent the women in their 20s that are taking your roles? And she said, no, because I was in my 20s taking roles from women in their 30s. I was a beneficiary of that system. And I thought that's such a mature way to look at it. And I think there's something so powerful about this film that it was not only has this system made an older woman hate a younger woman, literally she hates herself.
Yeah.
She literally hates a younger version of herself. And I just think this is all sort of as a man watching this film. I think so much complexity coming from Coralie and what she's saying and what she's doing. I think she's bringing so much of her experience. On the surface, very simple, but underneath, I think she's bringing a lived experience, a life of experience as a woman in the industry that, I don't know, I just felt a lot of empathy, and I learnt a lot of things, and it made me think about a lot of things on the second viewing, I think.
That's so good, because I think that is the power of genre cinema. It is communicating to you ideas, thoughts in the fucking envelope of a dirty, fucking whack, funny, interesting, cool genre package. And like, what a better way to like start provoking thought.
And like, if there was anyone listening to that hasn't seen it, you shouldn't have listened to that. That was spoiler central.
That's deep thought. That's deep thought on it. On the surface.
That's not the movie. They're going to go in thinking that's not the movie.
No.
The movie is trash. And I love it. But like, it's the trashiest fucking film.
And it's nice seeing a film like this get so much love. I think that's exciting. It's interesting seeing so much love for this kind of horror performance, because so many of these things get overlooked in these kind of awards. We're in the middle of award season, so we're talking Oscars and shit. But like, you don't see a performance like this receive that much love often. Like, Mia Farrow wasn't nominated for Rosemary's Baby. Lupita Nyong'o not nominated for Us. Toni Collette not nominated for Hereditary. Those are the kind of performances that get left to the side. It's great to see an actor, Demi Moore, who always has been kind of neglected by big awards, do something so fun, so bold. And when I say bold, I mean tonally, like getting to play so many different things, like hard hitting stuff. That scene with her in the mirror is
very
hard,
vulnerable,
but then getting to do fun shit in prosthetics and mucking around, doing a big physical performance in those moments, transformative. It's like great to see something like that be thought of and awarded so much.
I saw her in an interview say that when she read the script, she said it was so risky that she had no idea if it would work.
But she had to take
and
that
when
risk.
and then when she has that feeling, she says yes, because Ghost was another movie, and it's true. Ghost is whack.
Is whack.
Like, it's a whack, and it's great.
It's like Ghost, you go, oh yeah, it's all this sensitive stuff. I go, no, a lot of it is Peter Chiavelli teaching Vincent Chiavelli, one of the weirdest looking character actors in the history of cinema, teaching Patrick Swayze how to use the Force as a ghost.
There's that. There's also just like a dark thriller element. Like, it is,
and
like
then a comedy with Whoopi Goldberg. It's like, it's all of these things. I go, yeah, it works. And it's made by the guys that did fucking Airplane and stuff.
It's great. It's like, I think Demi Moore has great taste.
Great taste.
In when there's 7 genres in one film. Like,
she knows what she's doing. That is the substance. Check it out. It might be on Mubi eventually, but it's gonna probably, I reckon, it'll play in the cinemas quite often still.
I think it's got a long run in the cinemas.
It's got long legs,
and it is a
short skirt. That's part of what the movie's about as well.
If you thought long legs had lots of long legs but not enough short skirt,
you'll love the substance. We're going into your next new release horror film. Grip that copy out. There we go.
For anyone watching, for anyone, I'm doing the action of...
He's holding up the tape. He's holding it up. It's still there. It's still there. But this is another 2024 film, another big horror picture from this year, but also using the term horror quite loosely, I'd say.
Very loosely here. Here, I hadn't heard it described as horror, and I didn't think of it as horror until afterwards I realized a lot of people were putting it in that category.
If anything, I'd say I've never seen a horror film speak this way, use these things. I think it expands what horror can be, this film. This is the second film from Jane Schoenbrunn. This is I Saw the TV Glow.
Horror.
This is a film that has stayed with me and resonated with me a lot. I think when I first saw it, I said that I liked it as much as you possibly could and admired it as much as you possibly could without falling in love with it. But here we are 7 months later after seeing it. I've thought about it quite a lot, and I think that this is a very, very special film. I think it communicates so elegantly and so beautifully and so deeply and so thoughtfully. I think it's one of the most significant films of 2024, and without even having seen it again, I think I'd say I saw the TV Glow.
It's one that stays with you. It's one that So I remember when I watched it, I think the biggest takeaway I had the first of the biggest takeaways I had stepping out of it was I'm a huge believer in do not lock down your opinion on a film until it's finished, and even then sit with it.
Yeah.
You know, I think so many people, as soon as the movie's over, like, this is fine, but they're like, what did you think of the movie, or did you like it? And that's fine, right? But there have been times, I think the most special movies, for me at least, are ones that take a minute, you know, that cook in your mind. And this was one where, for me, I didn't know if it was working as I was watching, and I was sitting there and I was like, I don't see how these pieces connect. And there were moments where I was like, oh, I wish that was a little tighter, or that was a little looser, or
a bit more overt, a little bit more like lean into the horror. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was just like, and I wish, you know, that moment came before that man. And I was sort of thinking in this analytical way, and I was like, it's just not clicking. And then for me at least, the final sort of 5 minutes, the final shot, the final moment hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I was devastated.
Wow.
And I was so moved. And
You're like Marv and Harry, the wet bandits being hit by bricks in Home Alone 2. Macaulay's tossing them off the roof. You're being hit by each brick and the deep meanings within them.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I just was like, I could feel that they were kind of going for something like this with the story, but where they took it and exactly what they were exploring, you know, the experience that they were exploring, I was just so devastated at the end of the film. And in a way that, like, from a place of empathy, you know, I've never felt such an empathetic sort of understanding, and that this is one I don't want to spoil too much, but it's, you know, the filmmaker is a trans filmmaker, but none of the characters are trans, and it's not directly about the trans experience, but it's such a powerful example of abstraction, I think, to take these sort of ideas that are politicized and these concepts that we talk a lot about, and then to abstract them away from the specific. It just hits you in a way. There's empathy there. I think it broadly. I think it speaks more, like, broader than just the trans experience. I think it speaks to the LGBT experience. I just think it's such a beautiful film, but it's also so devastating because I thought it was going to be a story about self-discovery. I thought it was going to be a story about coming out. I thought it was going to be a story in an abstract way about coming to, and it goes in a different direction to what I'm expecting, and that fucking hit me, you know, and sometimes that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But the fact that it does, I think, is very powerful.
If those who haven't seen it, I'll just tell a little bit more about it.
Have I given away too much there?
No, I don't think so, because I think you're talking around a lot of things. I
Yeah.
think it's you're communicating the thoughts and feelings of I Saw the TV Glow. It's about a teenager who is just trying to make it through life in the suburbs. He forms a friendship of sorts with a classmate who introduces him to a mysterious late-night TV show, a vision of a supernatural world beneath their own. In the pale glow of the television, Owen's view of reality begins to crack. I think that this also speaks so well to, especially when you're a young person, when you're a teenager, and you are looking for those resonances and those reflections of your world in the world of art and media and those things for you to connect with through entertainment. You're looking for some version of yourself somewhere, or something to say, hey, you're not fucking alone, man. There's people like you everywhere. Everyone is like you. And those are the bonds that one makes with their art, that they will resonate with them for the rest of their life, stick around. I think I Saw the TV Glow captures that feeling so well. And the way it does that is complete an utter verisimilitude in recreating the look of those TV shows of that era, down to the font, down to the typeface of the credits that you see in the pink opaque, the TV show. It's a recreation of Buffy. It reminds me of the show that I used to love, which is called So Weird, which is a Disney Channel take on X-Files and Buffy, about a little girl who goes on tour with her mum, who's a touring country music singer on the tour bus. There's a few other kids that belong to the other band members, and she sees visions and she meets supernatural things at every little turn. And I think there's oh my God, I haven't thought about So Weird in like 25 years. I'm watching this and go, oh my God, So Weird was one of my favorite shows growing up. It captures that thing of going, oh, there's something out there, there's something to relate to. And it's Jane Schoenbrun's complete, the craft in this film is insane. I saw the first film from Jane Schoenbrun and I rewatched it the night before I saw the TV.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
It's called We're All Going to the World's Fair. Another really unique, it's hard to classify it as horror, but it communicates in horror the same way Ice of the TV Clone does. Unique, cool, great take, great taste in that film as well. And it's like a very impressive first feature. The leap from that first feature to this is cosmic. It's astronomical. I've never seen a leap from a first to a second feature quite like this. Some people have it coming straight out of the gates, and I thought she kind of did. I thought they kind of did with that first film. Seeing this go, oh, this person is capable of great things and will be making great art for very many years. Just even the visual aspect of it, it's a feast. It's an absolute feast, this film.
And it's so, I think a lot of people, Lynch is on my mind at the moment. And a lot of, Lynchian is a word that's thrown around a lot, and the idea of people and a lot of people when they do surrealism and they do abstraction, it comes from a very intellectual place.
Yeah.
But I think when it's truly great, it comes from the gut. And this is a film that really feels like it comes from the gut. And there's intellect in there and there's thoughtfulness in the choices. But it really is coming from a place of like gut truth. Yeah. And I think for me, it's really interesting because when I watched this, I thought there are going to be kids. I loved it personally, and I remember I got out and wrote a little Letterboxed review, and I just did a few thoughts, and it was I said that about the gut thing, and my final thought was I genuinely think this is a film that's going to save lives. I think there are going to be kids that watch this film, and it's going to set them on the right path, or it's going to help them. It's going to do what the TV show failed to do in the story, but I think it's really going to just hit. I just think there's going to be 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds that watch this film, and it's just going to feel like, fuck, okay, all right. I gotta.
The trajectory of my life has changed.
I got to take a path here, and I think it's really going to set kids on the right path and save their lives, which is such a crazy big thing to say. It's a crazy thing to say that. And I would not say it about many films, but I really think this film has that.
I'll say one thing on surrealism before we move on. I think what you're hitting at is the way I think about surrealism, in particular American surrealism, which takes place in cinema. American surrealism is cinema. And a lot of those examples, especially Kaufman and stuff, what they do so well, and what Kaufman in particular does well, Charlie Kaufman, I guess Being John Malkovich is a great one, but even more so Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. In what they do so well is taking an idea and then turning that into a visual. It's taking a concept, taking an idea, taking a thought, or taking a feeling and making that visual. So it's like a visual metaphor for something. I think what I saw the TV Glow does so well in its surrealism, it takes that idea, takes that thought, creates it into visual, and then somehow it translates through that lens back into a feeling so successfully in a way that I think is on the same level, in the same realm of David Lynch's great works. I think that's what the surrealism of I Saw the TV Glow shares with the surrealism of David Lynch.
There's a moment in his memoir where he talks about growing up in
Is this his book, Catching the Big Fish?
Where it's half memoir,
Half self-help book?
No, it's half memoir, half biography.
Oh,
so
okay,
one
yeah.
chapter is written by an author,
Yeah.
and then he writes his musings on that. And there's a bit about his childhood where basically, for me, what I realized is, I always watched his earlier work, and like something like Blue Velvet, I would go, oh, he's making a comment on idealistic Americana. He's making a comment on a middle America, on the white picket fences. This is him using these tropes of blah, 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 blah. And then you read his biography and it's like, no, that's where he grew up. He grew up in 1950s middle America. That is his truth, and that's what he brings to his storytelling. And then we then interpret that as a bunch of shit. And that's what I love about this film, is it's not someone doing Lynch. It's someone talking about the suburbs they grew up in, the TV they watched, the dreams they have, the gut feelings that go on in their body, and that's what, it's so cool to see something that I would describe as Lynchian, but not because they're mimicking
Because
what
it's
he
like,
does.
oh, it looks like it. It's like,
No,
no, it's new.
It's because
new.
it comes from the same place. American surrealism is such a good way to put it. Oh, you're so smart, sir.
Oh, thank you, mate.
Sorry to everyone at the back that's lined up behind.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I just had this visual.
Yeah, sorry.
Of just a line of people. It's a Friday night at a
Yeah.
video store.
Like
Sorry.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
Yeah, these two wank jobs are hanging out at the counter, jerking off each other.
I just want a bloody rent out.
Oh,
bloody
come on.
Air Force One. And
I'm
you've been
trying to get
wanking on.
swordfish. I'm trying to get swordfish to take home.
I want to see Halle Berry's bobs. And you're wanking on.
Well, let's continue the wank first, brother. Roll the door down. We're locking ourselves in. It's time for the staff pick recommendation.
Staff pick.
So I nailed it extremely well for you last time. Body double. I got to try and live up to that in some way. I'm glad you went to the horror section, and I'm glad we're kind of talking about horror that I think has deep thought and meaning in it, and there's a kind of a trashy exterior. I'm going to recommend to me, one of the greatest discoveries I've ever made in horror. This is a film I didn't know anything about. I cannot even tell you how I stumbled across it. Got no memory of how I found it. I got it, fell in love with it. It's one of the best, favorite movies I've seen in the horror genre, and it's a film that is a complete discovery.
Scream.
It's called Scream 2. I didn't know they made a sequel to Scream. No, but it's like...
Sorry, I'm sorry.
But I think with this, it feels like a film that was purposely built to be rediscovered in every facet. It's from 1990. Produced by a guy called Lloyd Kaufman, the head of Trauma. It is a trauma film.
Wow.
And this is a film that Lloyd Kaufman has said over and over is a single best film Trauma has ever made. It is a movie called Death by Temptation.
Wow.
Horror.
And it's a bit of a monster movie. It's a great nighttime horror, nocturnal horror. It's a bit vampiric. I know you like vampires, but it's not a vampire per se. This is a rare film. It's a succubus film.
Love this.
It's a succubus film. An evil succubus is preying on libidinous black men in New York City. And all that stands in her way is a minister in training, an aspiring actor, and a cop that specializes in cases involving the supernatural. Tell me who the cast is at the front. You can see who these people are.
Holy cow. We've got Kadeem Hardison.
I love Kadeem Hardison. He's appeared on this podcast already in the film Drive.
Wow.
A good direct-to-video film. Then you've also got Bill Nunn, one of the great actors, and
We've
Samuel
got,
Jackson.
I was going to say James Bond III.
He's also the director of this film. So
What
if you
a-
like a
what a
James
name.
Bond movie, James
What
Bond
a
III.
name.
I know.
And then, yes, the big one, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
An early Samuel L. Jackson.
I mean, on a technicality, this is probably my favorite James Bond film. I would say on a real technicality, but I flat out love this. It really does feel like the ultimate horror discovery. It is shot by Ernest R. Dickerson, who was Spike Lee's cinematographer. They went through film school together. They graduate. He goes on and makes The Brother from Another Planet with John Sayles. Then he makes, I think, Spike Lee's first 4 films as cinematographer.
Wow.
Do the Right Thing, School Days, Mo Better Blues. And then he leaves and becomes a director. He makes Juice with Tupac. He makes a fun horror movie. So he loves genre films. He also comes back to work with Spike Lee one more time to shoot Malcolm X because he's like, I have a responsibility to make your big epic with you, Spike. He also starts shooting this. He gets called to come back to the big leagues with Spike and make Mo Better Blues. So who steps in to shoot the best looking horror film that's ever been produced in Troma? This film looks so beautiful. There's shots in it that feel like moonlights.
Wow.
Both the movie and the feeling of light from the moon hitting it. It's such a gorgeous looking film shot on no money. Who steps up to plate? Lloyd Kaufman himself.
Wow.
The provocateur behind Troma Films. And he felt like so honored. He's like, I need to bring my more than I've ever been capable of doing to live up to the great Ernest Dickinson's shooting style. And you watch and you go, this whole movie looks good. It's indistinguishable when it's Lloyd Kaufman doing it to one of the greatest cinematographers ever in America.
Cow.
It's just he really brings it. He felt inspired, and he's always said it's the best film Troma's ever made. And like the films we talked about, The Substance, even Body Double, I Saw the TV Glow, it's a little messy for sure, but it feels so sensitive in what it's talking about. It's almost like it's expressing thoughts that are hard to put out into feelings and translate to film. Like it's kind of beyond like this succubus horror. It's made by James Bond III, who's a former child actor.
Wow.
It feels very personal. It has these intimate thoughts and ponderings on race, sexuality, and masculinity that feel very raw. Like it's like, how do you even put these out there? How do you express these things? It's a very, very raw film. And when you place it in its time in 1990, it feels like this missing groundbreaking film that just no one has ever heard of.
Amazing. This is like a real good one. I'm
This-
excited to see this.
I think you're like,
This is so up my alley.
so up your alley. Like truly, like
This
when we
is-
were talking about Substance, I Saw the TV Glow, Death by Temptation quickly came to mind.
So I feel like with Body Double, right?
Mm.
You took my four films and you picked something perfect. Now you've got 2 references and we've worked on a project together for a year.
I know
So
you're
now
looking
you
at that.
know my taste.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mind it a little messy so long as it has a heart.
It's got a lot of heart. It's
You
got
know,
a lot
I'm
of heart.
so excited about
And
it.
this copy, it's like a Troma release. It's got the funniest, best audio commentary because it's just the producer of the disc found James Bond III's number and called him up and talks to him on the phone for the length of the movie, basically.
Amazing.
So you're kind of unlocking so much stuff. He never made another movie. Like, never. He's
you
got
know-
no credits, basically, after this.
The thing
in
you
any
say
way.
about him, and then you're talking about Lloyd Kaufman being a great cinematographer. I don't want to talk too much because there is a big line behind me.
Yeah, of course. We've got people with pitchforks behind you.
But no, they did a special screening of Heavenly Creatures at Melbourne International Film Festival last
Peter Jackson
time
picture?
around. Yeah, Peter Jackson picture, who he has done a 4K restoration on, but just is not releasing.
He will eventually.
Eventually, I hope, because
Yeah.
that is a one
Mate,
of my
wait a second. I'm
all-time
seeing all the
favourites.
people with pitchforks turning around and heading towards New Zealand to start picketing him to release it.
But I remember reading about that being and hearing that film, that was a film that no one in America wanted him to make because he'd only been doing like shocking horror films. Everything he like pitched to do a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel, like he was only getting horrors. And then Heavenly Creatures feels like it's a beautiful, beautiful film. Like it's genuinely one of the greats. And I just I remember like thinking when I watched it, just like how many great horror genre filmmakers didn't get their opportunity to make films outside of that genre. But it's like when I hear that, I just go like, fuck, like
Yeah.
the films we didn't get because people lock them into a category.
Yeah.
It sounds like this is a real one of those
It's a
categories.
truly unique film. Like, truly, truly
Yeah.
unique. Like, doesn't exist. You can watch it on Tubi right now.
I love Tubi.
It's on Tubi right now.
Do you know me and Mish Wittrup, we have a podcast together. When we finish watching John Leguizamo movies, we're going to do Tubi versus Mubi. Have I told you about this?
You have.
Yeah.
I would say Death by Temptation would be very nicely paired with Trouble Every Day by that's always on Mubi as well.
Is that the Claire
Denis?
I still haven't seen
Claire
that.
Denis film. I think they play very well together.
Yeah, that's a great movie, Tubi. We'll have you on
Get me on
in
for
a
both of
year's
those.
time when
Get
we do
me
movie
on.
Tubi.
But that is Death by Temptation. Huge recommendation. I think you'll love it, Zach. We
Thank
talked
you.
about the subs. We talked about I Saw the TV Glow. You're taking those home with you, and you're taking home Death by Temptation. And yeah, I'll pop you that 4K restoration on file from Peter
And
Jackson.
can I also get this this PlayStation disc of Tony Hawk?
Of course, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater
And
too.
Multicolour popcorn.
Of course. And were there any kind of posters or standees you want to put your name on the back of, and we'll keep them for you when we get rid of
No,
them?
I better not. I don't really have the room, but I will get a bottle of Solo to have with my multicolour popcorn.
Oh, well, of
please.
course, it's a 1.25 litre. And
Thank
guess what? It's freshly warm.
Oh, freshly warm. Only $43.
Well, we'll exchange currencies for you. Zach, thank you so much for coming back into the Last Video
Thank
Store,
you.
returning some movies, taking out some more. You've got some beautiful projects. You've got Mission Zach podcast.
Yeah.
You're talking about not just John Leguizamo movies, you're talking about lots of stuff with Mish Wittrup, who has to come on this show sometime.
yes.
One of my favorite people, one of the funniest people. But I've been on that show many, many times. We had some good chats on there.
Yeah, we just talk shit.
We talk shit. We talk shit,
we love
get
talking
lit.
about things. Yeah, that's a great podcast. I've got that.
You're
got
in a
Aunty-
sketch group called Aunty Donna.
Aunty Donna has a tour in like a year, so come to that in a year. But before that, I'm going to say it one more time. Refused Classification, the single greatest documentary lecture
stage.
comedy verbatim theatre show starring two comedians who love films that has ever been made in Australia.
I think it would, yeah, it probably is.
I feel very confident saying
I mean,
that.
maybe Net kind of.
Yes,
does some of
only,
those things.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
better than whenever David Quirk did it. But yeah, that is our show, Refused Classification. It's going to be at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival in official competition of the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, official competition at Sydney Comedy Festival, official competition of the Adelaide
Fringe
Festival, and Brisbane Comedy Festival as well. I think we might be out of competition there, but we will be in the official selection.
I think that's the director's fortnight at Brisbane Comedy Festival. So we are eligible for a couple of awards.
Okay, that's good.
I think we're eligible for the Camera d'Or.
Yeah, but for all the juries at the comedy festivals, please consider Refused Classification when you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Please consider it.
Yeah.
We submit
Xavier
it for
Dolan is the head of the jury at Melbourne.
Shit. Oh God, he might like it.
Yeah.
I think he might like it. I hope you like it, Xavier Dolan.
Thank you for having me back at your video shop. And,
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
yeah, no worries.
Yeah, thanks for making the trip out to Batuta, where the
Yeah.
video store is.
Oh, no worries. And also,
We could do some world building on that if you wanted before we go.
yeah.
It's hard to do that world building with Keith Urban sitting across from you or Lee Winnell.
Yeah, Lee Winnell's just come in and pretty crazy. Did Lee Winnell say that he was renting pornos when he
No, he just said, just slip me a little extra.
he was like an hour talking about the movies. He's like, oh, and I'll also grab
And I just saw this one. Looks kind of interesting. It looks kind of interesting, man. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I'd love to get Body Double. I'd love to get The Substance. I'll get Death by Temptation and also this one. Also just these two as well. All right,
We'll pop those in a brown paper bag for you, brother.
thanks, mate. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Zach. Buy tickets to Refused Classification. Come see it live. Support your mates, Zach and Alexei. And the tickets to that is in the show notes. You can click straight through.
Oh, wow. I love a show notes.
I'm trying to revolutionize show notes.
Yeah, everyone.
I'll pop a picture in there of the porno that Zach picked up. You can click through and find
I'll
that.
let you know. I'll get one with a real trashy one.
Yeah, I saw the TV blow.
The Last Video Store.